Great. I'm calling to order the MWPA Executive Committee meeting of March 5th, 2026. The first item of business is call to order. So I'm now calling it to order. Roll call. Martina.
Starting with Director Goins,
Here.
Director Rodoni,
Present.
Director Kurtz,
Present.
Director Kohler,
Here.
Director Hilliard.
Here. We have a quorum.
We do.
Great. Item 3, agenda adjustments. I will entertain any requests to adjust the agenda or the order of the agenda. Are there any agenda adjustments? Hearing none, we will move on to item 4, open time for public expression. The public is welcome to address the executive committee at this time on matters that are not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of the committee. Please be advised that pursuant to Government Section 54954.2, the committee is now not permitted to discuss or take any action on any matter not on the agenda. Comments may be no longer than 2 minutes and should be respectful to the community. Please silence your cell phones during the meeting and mute your microphone when not reporting out. Are there any public present or online who would like to make public comments at this time?
We do not have any attendees here in the room, but we do have attendees in the online environment. If there are any who wish to deliver a public comment at this time, please raise your hand in the reactions. And for those joining us by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute or unmute yourself. And there are no hands at this time.
Thank you. Since there are no members of the public wishing to speak, we will move on to item 5, Executive Officer's Report. This is an oral report. Executive Officer Mark Brown will present the Executive Officer Report. Mark.
Good morning, everybody. Yesterday, when we had our preparatory meeting for today, I promised that we would have a bright morning. So I was able to come through with that, but we did close the blinds just so we don't blind everybody. But it is nice and bright. One quick note: we do have Emily Longfellow here for our general counsel. Megan is away, but her partner's here to help us out with this meeting. Jumping into my report, looking at the fuels outlooks, even with the sporadic style of rain that we've been having, there still has been enough moisture in the air to have our fuels, both 100-hour and 1,000-hour fuels, be above average, which is great news for this time of year. But they will react quickly if we don't have any more precipitation for the rest of the year. So contrary to my best baseball outlooks, I'm really hoping for a wet April so that we can have some moisture in those fuels. Wanted to let you know that you should be seeing some information coming out about Marin wildfire in a couple of back-to-back media releases. The first media release will be about our success of getting one of our residents off the California Fair Plan and on the Mercury insurance. The process of building that press release has already been initiated. And then I'm coordinating with the group that is giving Marin Wildfire the Wildfire Mitigation Award for the press release on that award, which will be given to us when we attend the WUI conference in Reno. Several of Marin Wildfire staff member agencies routinely attend that conference already. So it'll be nice for us to be receiving that award there, and we'll make sure that we have great pictures of President Hilliard receiving the award while we're there, and we'll include that as part of our media release. Recently, actually Monday of this week, Kathleen Cutter and I had an opportunity to present at the California Fire Prevention Institute on Zone Zero in a Box. It was a 2-hour, and they style it as a classroom session so that the people can get continuing education credits. And we felt it was important to share what we're doing with Zone Zero in a Box, especially since one of the stipulations of the Marin Community Foundation grant was that we built something that was replicable outside of Marin. So if we don't tell the story, how do we get people to replicate the program outside of it. So, but we also wanted to be able to learn from people. So we had a couple of different brainstorming sessions that Kathleen designed into our program to be able to solicit feedback from people or students that were in the class. And we got lucky. We had people that were from Escondido who have the first wildfire prepared community in the nation in their jurisdiction. So they were able to share some of the information they learned from that. Interesting side note, maybe not even a side note, interesting note, the average insurance rate for those homes is $1,000, under $1,000 a year for homeowners insurance based on the wildfire prepared community designation. And now this was a total new construction. The contractor said that many of the materials costs that align with the wildfire prepared home ended up costing less than standard construction materials. So we're hoping this type of information gets out and more new communities are built to the standard for those very reasons right there. And we had some other people that have some really innovative ideas throughout the state of what they're doing when it comes to zone zero. So we not only were we able to share what we were doing, we were able to bring back some information that we learned. Resource Legacy Fund has been reaching out to us quite a bit. I've got two situations to talk about with them. Last week, I was invited to go to Sacramento to have a policy discussion and create some guidance for the incoming governor that coming from the Resource Legacy Foundation when it comes to wildfire mitigations. It was a very large room with a lot of subject matter experts. Although one observation I gave the RLF was there were only 2 fire service personnel in the room, and I felt like they needed a lot more fire service representation. As I mentioned, everything you're talking about is going to fall on the shoulders of the fire service to implement. So perhaps we should be getting feedback from them. They were really open to that. And then the second,
Can you say who they are? I don't.
the Resource Legacy
Can
Fund,
you explain who they are?
large multinational philanthropic organization that often gets involved with policy discussions and policy guidance. And then speaking of them, they are going to be having their board of directors meeting and with their staff here in Marin because they wanted to see the work that we were doing with Marin Wildfire. So end of March, 33 members from the RLF, both board members and staff members, are going to be coming to Marin to have their annual board of directors meeting, but also to view a lot of the work that we're doing. So it's going to be a tremendous opportunity to showcase what Marin Wildfire is doing. And then you should have all received an email yesterday soliciting what dates you will be available for a Saturday in the near future for our Board of Directors Strategic Planning. And then following up on the request from President Hilliard to always give us a reminder of what our timeline is for work plan development so you can be well engaged with your staff as we develop the work plan. And today is our second ATC meeting to discuss JPA-wide proposals. We'll be bringing the full JPA-wide proposals to the Ops Committee on next week, a week from today. And then we anticipate to be able to discuss the JPA-wide proposals with exec at the April meeting and then again at the board meeting in April. And in May, we'll be focusing on the remainder of the work plan, the zone projects, the local D-space projects for total approval for at the May meeting of the board of directors. And with that, I'll stop my screen share and take any questions.
Yes, please. Director Comer.
So, excuse me for not being familiar with the Resource Legacy Fund, but is the idea that we think we could get some significant funding from them?
They haven't really offered that. We definitely are going to get a feel for that, but I'm not sure what the possibilities are.
I mean, usually foundations are easier than grants.
Yeah.
So, do your best.
Yep.
Thank you.
I would like to follow up on that. Can you give us an example of what they've done? One example of who they funded and to what amount?
Oh, that'll be a tough one off the top of my head. Maybe Ann can.
Okay.
they get involved a lot in natural resources management. They're moving into and kind of environmental concerns. They're moving more into wildfire now than they used to. One of their grantees is the California Fire Safe Council, and so they'll actually be joining us in March as well for our meeting.
And I'm on their website looking if I can find an easy project that they've done, but a lot of it has been historically in environmental, but like Ann said, they're pivoting into wildfire.
Thank you. So I'll open it up for anybody else who would like to ask questions or make comments on Mark's presentation. Rachel.
Are they tying into the legislation that Assemblymember Connolly is introducing?
I don't know if they're coming on board as a supporting entity or not. The policy discussion that we had last week did not actually dig into any specific Senate bills or Assembly bills.
Okay, great.
That was on the news yesterday, SB 1899, I think. I'm not sure if that number is right, but maybe we could get more details on that.
Actually, I just was we were sent an email that there's probably 15 to 20 Assembly bills or Senate bills that are wildfire related. So I got a brief synopsis of that I'd be happy to share with the board.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. I'll now take public comment on this item. Oh, sorry, Bruce, thank you.
Mark, the Escondido community, the wildfire prepared community, I find that fascinating. There was an article last week that laid out what attributes of a structure lend to susceptibility to being burned in a wildfire. And the number one attribute was the distance between homes. But then if you do all the other stuff, there's about a 50% risk reduction is about basically what it said. But do you know what the specs, I mean, could you share us or provide us a link with the specs for this wildfire prepared community, what the construction is? Not necessarily construction, but what is the distance in homes? I mean, did they pay attention to that or not? That's my question.
The structure separation distance definitely is one of the key factors for spread, as you know, for an urban conflagration. I'd have to look into the IBHS. It's Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety that developed the wildfire prepared community specifications. I'm not sure where they've gone with structure separation. They probably are leaning towards not necessarily mandating a certain distance just because they want existing communities to be able to come. But if there is not desirable separation distance, that you have these mitigations in place. And so one thing to keep in mind as Fireman's Fund in Novato is being going through demolition now, and there's going to be a community in there. Novato Fire is actually connected with the contractor and pointing them towards making that community be a wildfire prepared home or wildfire prepared community. So more to follow on that.
Okay, yeah, let's just keep our eyes on it. That's wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I just add something, with all these changes in housing laws, we've pretty much gotten rid of setbacks. So as far as being able to spread out a lot with new developments, that may be very difficult given the new housing laws.
And so that makes, I've heard the argument against zone 0 because of the smaller setbacks. But if you ask me, the smaller setbacks and the closer the building is, the even more important zone 0 becomes.
Okay, anyone else who would like to ask questions or make a comment? Thank you so much, Mark. We'll go to the public now. And are there any members of the public present or online who would like to make a comment?
We do have a hand raised for public comment. And Bill Tyler, you should be able to deliver your
Good,
comments.
calling on Bill Tyler.
Good. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
This is Bill Tyler, Executive Director with Fire Safe Marin. And I just wanted to mention with regards to the Legacy Fund meeting and its link to the California Fire Safe Councils, that Fire Safe Marin is a Fire Safe Council. It is Marin's Fire Safe Council, and that we were helping host and participate in that meeting that's coming up. It's actually going to be out adjacent to the Fire Safe Marin's offices in Sleepy Hollow. And we worked as a partner as the pre-meetings took place, site visits and help with logistics. So I just wanted to share that we're deeply connected to Marin Wildfire and California Fire Safe Councils to support this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that clarification. Really helps. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak at this time?
I see no additional hands at this time.
Okay, then I'll bring it back to the committee for discussion. Is there any other discussion that you would like to have at this time? Seeing no hands, I will go to the next item, consent calendar. The opportunity for public comment on the consent calendar items will occur prior to the committee's discussion of the consent calendar. The committee may approve the entire consent calendar in one action, or items on the consent calendar may be removed by any committee or staff member for separate discussion and a vote. I will now, are there any requests for taking any? I think there's only one item, isn't it? The minutes. Okay, so I'll now take public comment on the consent calendar. Are there any members of the public present or online who wish to make a comment?
There are no hands at this time.
Seeing none, then I would ask for
I'll move it.
Thank you.
Second.
So moved by Director Kohler, seconded by Director Kurtz. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous, so it passes. Thank you so much. On to the next item, which is, item 7A, strategic measures for Goal 4, public outreach and education. Mark Brown and Marin Wildfire Consultant Charlotte Jourdain will present this item. Take it away. It's yours.
And I'll do a quick kickoff. Just want to mention that this, of our 5 goals, this is our final goal to come up with strategic measures. We did goal 2 about 3-4 months ago. We brought to the board. When it comes to our dashboards displaying our goals, we have a dashboard we've had a dashboard for goal 1 and 5 up on and online for almost a year now. And then we launched our goal 2 dashboard 2 weeks ago. It was part of my executive officer's report that I hope you received in the mail 2 days ago. So our goal 2 for alerts, warnings, detections that dashboard is up and running. And after we approve these strategic measures for goal 4, then we'll begin the work for a dashboard on goal 4. And with that, I'll pass it off to Charlotte.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Charlotte Jourdain. I'm an independent consultant for Marin Wildfire. So as Mark said, let's dive into the proposed strategic measures for goal 4. So let's see, can you see the screen? Yeah. So today's objective is to review the 4 proposed key measures that will inform progress towards Marin Wildfire's strategic goal number 4, which is our goal to enhance public outreach and education toward wildfire preparedness. I want to just propose that a good measure over time allows us to answer 2 questions. One is, where are we at with this? And 2 is, are we trending in the right direction? If we're not, we can make changes. If we're too slow, we can make changes. And if we are doing well, we can celebrate success. I want you to perhaps remember that staff has access to a lot more information than these 4 key measures, right? But we've learned the hard way with the other 4 goals that we can't track everything. Goal number 1 and goal number 5 actually each have 5 measures, and that's already a lot. So anywhere between 3 and 5 key measures that are important to you is what we're looking for today. So
Can I just ask, maybe for the board, when you do this, you can't read with the green. Is there some way to make it darker?
Yeah.
Put it in presentation mode also, so you
Yeah.
can decide.
Okay. It's not
Maybe
green on
that'll
my
help.
side. It looks green.
See the brightness in the room. It's
Well, it's not just that, you just can't see the green, so in the future, maybe do it in black. Yeah,
There you
that's
go.
better.
It's black on my screen.
Oh, that's interesting. It
Just
looks
the
green.
display here. Yeah. But I will make sure the font is as dark
Great,
as it can be.
Thanks.
Okay, so before we get to these four measures, I want to, this is how I'm planning to present to you today. I want to walk you over the approval process and then looking ahead at the implementation process for this so you know where this is coming from, how these measures have been coming to you for recommendation to the full board. I'll provide a little bit of context about Goal 4, how it compares to the other goals. We'll look at briefly at the framework for public outreach and education. It's, as you can imagine, heavily human behavior based, so it's difficult to track and to measure. And then we'll get into the four proposed measures, and I'll give you the detail of how we plan on tracking all of those. And then any feedback you have, I'll incorporate before it goes to the full board. Okay, so approval and implementation process. So we started with a working group, just like we did for all the other strategic measures, to brainstorm and define and coalesce around the four that sort of made the cut to today's meeting. We then previewed those four proposed measures at the Ops Committee retreat last September, and then gathered further feedback from the working group. We then presented to the ad hoc committee of the board on January 22nd, incorporated that feedback. Today, it's coming to you, the executive committee, and then we expect, with your feedback, to be able to move for full approval of the board in May. Once the four measures are approved or these strategic measures are approved, then we will implement the necessary systems to track data for them and publish this on the dashboard like we've done for the other three goals so far. And then from there, we track year-to-year progress and we make adjustments as we see the measures evolving in the direction we want them to. So I hope that provides a little bit of feedback. This is not just me coming to you with four proposed measures. This has gone through an extensive process of review with the working group, the ops committee, and the ad hoc committee of the board. So the working group was convened, including the following attendees. So San Rafael Fire, Novato Fire, Central Marin Fire, Fire Safe Marin, Fire Aside, and Marin Wildfire staff. The ad hoc committee of the board includes these directors. Some of you can keep me honest today. And so now let's move into context. So here are the five goals, right? The five strategic goals. The first one's vegetation management, and we have a dashboard. It's been online, as Mark said. Actually, I think it's over a year now. Goal number 2, detection alerts and evacuation. That was the last set of strategic measures the board approved. We have a dashboard for that online as well. It's relatively new. Goal 3, we have a single strategic measure approved. It's gone to the full board for approval, and the progress dashboard is coming soon because we're probably not going to put together a public dashboard for just one measure. So we're looking to complement it with some service level measures that I can talk about separately. And then today we're considering measures for Goal 4, and then we also have our Goal 5, defensible space and home hardening dashboard that, again, has been online for over a year and is also tracking year-to-year progress. Okay, so moving to Goal 4, public outreach and education for Marin Wildfire. Here is the language that the full board approved when you did I think it was your first strategic retreat. We can read it together. So Marin Wildfire will work with partners to deliver specific, actionable, measurable, and verifiable information and assistance to encourage members of the public to do their part in creating ecologically sustainable fire-adapted communities to reduce fire-related risk and to minimize the impact of disaster events. So the emphasis in red is mine. Of all the 5 goals here, this really is the one that focuses on members of the public doing their parts. For all the other goals, we do something, obviously with the support of the public, but the action is on us. For this goal, through education and outreach, we're trying to get the members of the public to do something. Whether it be defensible space and home hardening on their parcel, support for vegetation management around their communities, signing up for Alert Marin, they have to take action. And that makes it hard to measure, right? Because our outreach and education efforts are always going to be one step removed from that final action, which is the public actually doing what the action that's intended. So I just want you to keep that in mind because it does influence how we conceptualize these measures. Oops. Okay. So before we get into it, just very briefly, a small framework, just, to take a step back and consider how does public outreach and education help us get people to take action. So we have been discussing this with the various board working groups and committees. The idea is that there's essentially 3 steps, right? The first one is, as a member of the public, one needs to have awareness that fire is an issue that they should pay attention to. There's many, many things to pay attention to in today's world. And perhaps that's enough. Perhaps it's enough for me to know that wildfire might be coming one day, and that drives me to take action. Perhaps it's not. Perhaps I have to have awareness, but I also need to have the resources to do what I need to do. The resources could be in terms of information. It could be in terms of funding, just a guide, right? Something that tells me what it is that I have to do. The wildfire risk report is a really good example of that. We're not just making people aware that wildfire is a problem. We're actually handing them a to-do list. And perhaps that's enough. Perhaps it's not. Perhaps I got my wildfire risk report and I still don't understand. There's a term I'm not familiar with, or my eaves on my house don't exactly match what the text, the description of what I should do is. So then I need support. I need somebody to hold my hand, to pick up my phone call, to respond to my email. Maybe I need some grants money. I need something else to then take action, right? So as you can see, it's very human-based and very hard to measure exactly where our activities in terms of public outreach and education have an impact on getting the public to take action. I'm sort of laying the groundwork for the measures as they come. So we've gone a little bit over this. Awareness is paying attention, and what we do so far to bring awareness is articles, advertising, lawns, bus signs, social media posts, community events, amber stomps. And sometimes people need several sort of hits or pings, right, before their awareness is actually triggered. Resources is, I have the know-how to do what I need to do. I have my inspection report. I have videos that show me exactly how to clear, things in zone 0. There's printed materials I can look at. There's community events. The Fire Safe Marin website is a great example of resources. Grants, the chipper program helps me get things out of my property. Those are resources available to me. And then support is the last bit that I think we sometimes forget. My problems and my questions have been resolved and I can move forward. This is also an area where all of our member agencies and Fire Safe Marin play an important role in responding to emails and calls from the public and having that one-on-one personable interface with members of the public to get them to take action. So that's a little bit of the framework. Let me now move into the strategic measures. So when we think about measures that invite the public to take action, I want to remind you that we are already tracking 3 of them under other strategic goals. And that's perhaps because by definition, public outreach and education overlays all of our other strategic goals in many ways, right? It's part of vegetation management. It's part of defensible space and home hardening. It's part of evacuation preparedness. So we track whether members of the public are opening their report under Goal 5. We track whether they're implementing defensible space and home hardening, also under Goal 5. We track whether they've signed up for Alert Marin under Goal 2. So those are already tracked and underway for our strategic planning. So now moving to the first proposed measure under Goal 4, the working group is proposing that we track the % of residents or parcels that meaningfully interact with fire prevention staff. So as you know, our inspection programs across the JPA include the ability for residents to join their inspectors as they inspect or evaluate their parcels and receive that information one-on-one at their home. Some residents are not there or cannot join, but we think that during this time, the interaction between the inspector and the resident, there's a lot of really good public outreach and education that can be transmitted. So tracking whether residents are making the time to actually be there with their inspectors seems like an important indicator that residents are aware this is a problem and they need to eventually do something about it.
Just ask one question. So, your discussion of what that means is really helpful, but I don't think it necessarily comes across. Meaningful interact, when I just look at that, doesn't tell me that they were there during their inspection.
Mhm.
So it might need a little more refinement because we can all define that different ways. But
Mhm.
I think that's a good,
Yeah.
it's a good piece.
Yeah, thank you for that. So that the language there actually with the ad hoc committee of the board, we discussed that quite a bit, right? The original language that came from the working group was % of residents that walk with their inspectors. And there was some concerns that the term walk with was too narrow for people who maybe cannot be there physically or
What
walk
about
around.
participate?
Sure.
I mean, I think because what you explained is they're actively involved in the inspection, right? And when you say meaningfully interact, that could
Well,
just be that I call fire later.
and that's my intention. So
Okay.
the presence during the inspection was one example of a meaningful interaction, but I think what we're proposing here that is that this measure eventually also includes phone calls and emails that Fire Safe Marin responds to, that Marin Wildfire responds to. There's a system in place to track this, so it wouldn't be very hard to do. But I think getting an indication for each parcel, is there somebody that's actually engaged in the process as opposed to just receiving the door tag and never even opening their report or doing anything about it, seems like a good indicator. So my bad. The walking with the inspector or being there at the time of the inspection is one example of a meaningful interaction, but there could be others outside of the inspection time specifically.
So would the dashboard actually provide more detail as to what that means?
Yeah, the dashboard usually has the measure and then a little explanation on the left-hand side that describes how it's calculated, what are the things that feed into the measure. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just to finish up on this, we do know from our past few years of experience that people who do meet with their inspectors are much more likely to actually take action and resolve issues on their parcels. I think it's about 5 times more likely than other residents. So we have good grounds to to move forward with something like that and making sure our programs are available to the public at the time that they're available. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll move forward. Okay. Okay, so besides this sort of like direct, measure of resident engagement, the next 3 measures for this goal that are proposed here have more to do thinking about how we work with partners to broaden the reach and multiply the message. So we have 3 measures that we're already tracking under other goals. We have this measure about meaningful participation in fire prevention activities. That's sort of all we can track directly, but we do want to pay attention to our efforts in multiplying the message. So the next 3 measures have to do with that aspect. The second measure we're proposing is to quantify or count essentially the number of parcels that are organized in fire-focused communities. So across the JPA, we have a number of Firewise communities. We will hopefully soon have, at least my understanding is, 1 IBHS wildfire prepared community, hopefully more in the future. And again, we know that Firewise communities are more likely to take action to resolve things on their properties. They have a peer-to-peer sort of ability to inform and raise awareness about issues. So we want to take advantage of that, and we feel it's important that we know what percentage of the county is organized into these fire-focused communities.
Rachel, I'm looking at I'm sorry, Rachel. Charlotte. The attachment, the handout for this presentation, the 4A is % of residents and 4B is % of parcels. So I think you need to correct this to
Sure.
accurately represent. It's actually providing us with a measure that there's a numerator and a denominator here.
Yeah,
So it's
you're-
percent, it's not just numbers. So if you can please correct that, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. The third measure is in a similar vein, the idea of partnership with trade organization and vendors, particularly those around home preparedness. So we know that defensible space and home hardening is a critical part of what residents need to do to help prepare the county. So anything that has to do with vendors around the home, so builders, realtors, landscapers, landscape architects, nurseries and home hardening vendors those are critical partners for us to work with to try to multiply the message so that residents essentially receive the wildfire prevention message not only directly through us or the inspection program or the bus signage that they see or the lawn sign or the Marin IJ article, but that they also see it through their through the people that they interact with for anything that has to do with their home. So that's number 3. And then number 4 is a partnership with unique needs community from a fire risk perspective. So we know that there are several communities around Marin that face a different types of fire risk, but that also have unique needs for various reasons. So we propose working with them directly to make sure that their needs are met in terms of educating their residents and their community members about fire risk, maybe in a little bit of a different format, or maybe the delivery of the message needs to be modified slightly to fit the needs of that community. I want to say on the last.
Can I?
Sure.
Oh,
Well,
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you give us an example of unique communities?
Yeah, sure. So this measure is actually we're thinking specifically about working with the county's community resilience teams. There's 5 of them across the county. So it's the Canal Alliance is leading the contract for the community resilience team in the San Rafael area. In Southern Marin, it's the Marin Community MCCT. I forgot what it stands for. Do you remember?
Marin County Cooperation Team.
Cooperation team. In Novato, it's through
North Marin Community
North Marin
Services.
Community Services. Thank you. And then in West Marin, there is 2. They sort of share. It's the San Geronimo Community Center and West Marin Community Services. And then there's a brand new one in Central Marin. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. And then we also have the Center for Independent Living. So that will be our partners here. Through the years, we've learned that it's a difficult partnership because wildfire preparedness is not their priority, right? I mean, they're have many more important messages that they're trying to convey to their community. But sometimes there's an opportunity and we need to be there and be ready to deliver that fire prevention message in the format that fits the needs of that community at the right moment. So being able to say that we meet the needs of these communities in a timely manner is also an important thing that the group would like to track.
Director Kohler.
Thank you. Just one thing. So probably when you do the dashboard, having examples of what you're talking about, but I'm sure Rachel's thinking about age-friendly communities as well as the Commission on Aging. That's where there's really a lot of unique needs, and I don't think there's a lot of engagement there.
Mm-hmm. So this is why we specified from a fire risk perspective, right? We
Same
need.
thing. A lot of older adults won't be able to get out of their homes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a much broader. Marin Cell is great,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm just not sure. What do you think, Rachel?
It's a bigger conversation in terms of the different organizations that are representing and serving the older adult community. So, I mean, we can go really deep on that specific conversation, but I think to Barbara's point, there's many pieces that we could think about in terms of those different communities and how to reach them. I did have a follow-on question. How do you defining partnerships? Is there a certification? Is there what does that mean?
Yeah, that's my next slide. So essentially, yeah, it's hard to measure partnerships. And I think that this organization has done a fantastic job through the other goals and strategic measures and dashboards at taking advantage of the data that's available to us. And that means a lot of our strategic measures are actually quite quantity driven and percent and numbers of parcels and number of reports open and so on. Here, because of the nature of public outreach and education, we need to move to something that's not necessarily quite as quantitative but is also a little bit more qualitative. So we can measure partnerships through organizational surveys, so that those are not surveys that are being sent out to residents. We know that there's survey fatigue out there, but we can inquire with our partners, are we meeting your needs? Are we providing the information that you need on a timely manner? How many members are part of your communities? How many parcels, right? We can get this information back and forth from our partner to help us shape our programs going forward. So it's not easy to quantify or track, but the working group really feels they're valuable, and it's a little bit of a, have to see how it evolves over time and what we learn as we start measuring these partnerships in relation with the various vendors and the various trade association. I know Fire Safe Marin's already kickstarted a program on this with funding from the Marin Community Foundation. So we're hoping to learn from their experience on what works and what doesn't work there, so we can continue and hopefully progress and elaborate a little bit here.
I just have
Yeah.
another comment. Okay, so basically, reaching these communities is for us to find out what their needs are, specifically to fire, in order for us to then go forward and do the program in a tailored way to their needs. So we're at the information gathering point as opposed to being able to analyze how effective we are with them. Is that correct?
Well, I think it's both. So there's going to be some partners with whom we are at the information gathering point, and then there's some partners with whom we've been working for a longer amount of time and with whom we can collect data on, are we making an impact? Are we solving? Are we meeting your needs? Are your residents doing what they need to do? Don't forget, we are still tracking whether residents are resolving or taking care of things around their home, creating defensible space. We're still tracking that separately of the partnerships. The idea of measuring the quality and the quantity of I guess mostly the quality of the relationship with partners is to help us make sure that we are using every avenue to get to those residents, right? The direct avenue and the indirect relationships that we have through partners.
Excellent, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. These are the four measures in front of you. Let's see, there was one comment about language, that the percent here, that's my typo. Oops, sorry. But I think they all will have a little description on the dashboard, right, that explains a little bit more in detail what this is about, what the intention is. So this is the language that we will be seeking board approval on.
Now it's time for questions, yes?
Sure, yeah.
Questions and comments on what's been presented. And Director Kurtz.
Thank you. Thanks for the update. This is a hard one to measure, and I think when and this is more directed, I think, to the exec committee than to Charlotte. When we first started, goal 4 seemed really important because we had 0 outreach and education. And now I'm seeing outreach and education more of a method or an approach to ensure that there's action. And I'm wondering, as we go into the second part of our strategic planning, if we need to relook, do we have still outreach and education as a goal? Or is that a tool that we use to reach other goals? So it's just a question out there. Second part is, when I've done marketing projects before, the goals that come up for me have always been reach, right? How far we're reaching, understanding, comprehension, and then the action. And if we are going to look at this as a goal, I'd like to see more around the action. And I know we have it in goal 5, but I still think there's some other ones that I would love to see how we continue more around the action. To me, participation or, those are good. I don't see how it's where it ties into the action piece. So I would really, these are around participation and partnership, but I think there's still gaps in terms of us being able to measure action.
So thank you for that comment. That's very important. I do want to say, going back to my first slide, right? So there's more information that's being tracked. For example, we Fire Safe Marin tracks how many people attend all of the events that we present at, how many people come to their table. We track the number of emails and phone calls that are given. So I think everyone agrees with you. I think the difficulty is, what is this other participation that we would like to track besides things, that we're already tracking or measuring? And they might not be part of the strategic measures. They might be tracked, separately, but
I'm less concerned about the participation. It's still important, but if it gets translated into doing the work. So if the only thing we are really focused on measuring and we're seeing as critical is the work that people are actually doing and getting done.
Yep.
And so how many contractors we have and how many Firewise communities, all good. But if it doesn't equate to actually getting the work done, we need to think about what else we need to do in that space.
Yep.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I think this is a very important goal, as is, because I believe that we are looking for a way to, there's more to it than just the statistics part. There is what's going on among us and taking individual responsibility. Excuse me. I'm looking at a way for us to develop a clear plan when we work with Fire Safe Marin. If we want to guide them, if we want to say, these are the things that are really important to our public, my constituents, which, the whole group together have constituents, and, what are the important elements? And this is a way to get there. I also think that there's a very, I don't like to use the word political, but there is an element of personal not reaction, but personal interface with our constituents. We get back that word of mouth is a really important way that we spread the word, that demonstrations of our neighbors actually doing the work and doing zone 0 in a box is a way that gives incentives to the others. There's all kinds of other things, but also, maybe I'm not being clear, but it's a tool for me to help my community to see what are we doing, where do we need to go. Your last goal in the partnerships is very important to me, that we are reaching out in a meaningful way, not just window dressing, like, okay, we don't know what to do with this community, so we're going to do our best to really create partnerships where they're involved with us. So to me, this is a very important goal. So I just wanted to add that comment and wonder if anybody else has feelings about that.
Could I add a couple thoughts, following up on Rachel's conversation about should goal 4 even be one of our goals? For those of us that were around in the first generation of these goals, that actually was a question we asked, because as Charlotte pointed out, goal 4 covers every single one of our other goals. And so we actually had a very long and thoughtful conversation about whether or not to have our own goal 4. And we ended up landing on goal 4 for primarily 2 reasons. One, it's stipulated in JPA, public education. And 2, one of the findings in the grand jury report was the fire service was not doing a good job of providing public education. And so those were the 2 of the reasons why we decided to keep goal 4 in there. And it's so interweaved in all the others. So I could see why as we go through our second generation of strategic planning, we may say, you know what, goal 4 doesn't need to be a goal. It's already embedded in every single thing we do. However, I think the way we were able to structure these measures of success allows us to lean on other measures of success and how they interact with what we've created. And I think this will allow us to, understand the evidence that we've been seeing is, let me use Firewise communities as an example. The evidence we've been seeing is the Firewise community engagement for the other goals has been higher. So that's why we ended up with that as being a component. So by having goal 4 be the last one we worked on, mostly because it was the toughest nut to crack, but it allowed us to mature a little bit and realize what measures we really should be measuring. So I think we landed on the measures that will drive goals 1, 4, or 1, 2, and 5 measures of success. So I'm happy with the balance that we came, but totally understand the idea that as we go through our second strategic planning, we may not.
I mean, it doesn't mean it goes away. But it's foundational to the work that we're already doing, but I wouldn't say it's necessary. Like we had to have it as a goal because we were starting from 0, right? But it is embedded and it is driving everything else that we are doing.
Removing it as a goal would not remove the importance of it.
Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely.
I have a timeline and process question here. I think these are excellent and supportive. I was on the ad hoc team and as were some others. But Mark, here we are in March and it's being presented to the executive committee, and in April, it's going to go to let's see, was it May to the board?
This will be going to the board in March.
Okay, so
It is?
where did I get board
Okay.
approval?
Sorry, I didn't know that.
It is.
Okay, I might not be there, but
Okay.
it's fine.
We'll encourage people to watch the video.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so then this month, it'll be a topic of discussion for the board for approval. Okay. And the question related to, as we're developing this year's work plan, one of the comments that came out of the ad hoc meeting, and it was Dula McMillan who was present, she asked the question, how is this going to drive our communication education work in this current work plan and future? And specifically Fire Safe Marin, their project, and then of course other members' work that they're going to do. And the consensus of that small work group is that these should be incorporated into this year's work plan to the extent that we practically can. And that's just the point. I want to make sure timeline that indeed this will be a driver. And we'll be able to see this in the products of the work plan and the investment that we're going to make. And we can point back to this, that we're making progress.
I'm smiling because yes, and Charlotte will expand on that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So the advisory and technical committee today, and then later on the ops committee and the full board will be considering a revised scope of work for Fire Safe Marin starting on July 1st because their current contract expires, and that includes all of this. All of these are included in that scope of work. We've tied the scope of work to 4 different programs, and the strategic measures of success for goal 4, but also for the other goals are referenced into that scope of work so that there's we can't say to Fire Safe Marin, you're in charge of making this measure move, because that's not possible. That would require a magic wand, right? But we can reference how we are going to be tracking progress. One thing to remember also is Fire Safe Marin's the main, outreach and education partner, but our inspection programs also provide outreach and education to the public. So that's why we need to not, tie it just to the Fire Safe Marin scope of work, but just have general measures that track progress. And then if progress is not happening, if the measures are not moving, then we need to go up the chain and figure out where the hangups are and modify those. So that's the design here. I want to point out that from my perspective, this really is the only impact measure, right? The implementation of defensible space and home hardening, of all the goals, of all the things, that's the one. And we're tracking that one very closely. It's updated every month on the public dashboard. There's a tab that compares the last 3 years and shows for each of the 5 measures how we're moving. I really encourage you and the full board to take a look because I see things when I look at it. And those are the things that need to be addressed.
Thank
I
you.
would actually like to see that a snapshot of that dashboard shared at the board meetings in addition to like the calendar and the timing, because that to me is like, all the measures are important, but to me, this is the priority right now.
Happy
So
to do that.
I think
So,
that'd be
Happy to
really
do that.
helpful.
so I just want to add, I mean, I hear what Rachel's saying, but I think without having these goals and measures, we might not be doing all the outreach, and we could be doing this in a vacuum. So what I see is us continuing to work with what you presented, and in the future, looking at some of the ties that Mark mentioned, that we've seen in, I think, the annual report talking about people in Firewise communities having more work. They're doing more work, they're spending more money. And I think that that would be like a future iteration is what is the linkage, which I think is where Rachel's coming from. But I really think having public education and outreach is really important to maintain as a goal. Otherwise, we might not really be doing it, or we'd be doing it in just sort of a haphazard fashion. And this is just so critical because I still talk to people who, I mean, somebody I know who's incredibly educated said he didn't even open his inspection report and, um, I mean, more than educated. And some of the things the inspectors told him he thought were silly. And I said, well, talk to me when your house burns down because I've been to his house. And so, it's really important. We need to reach people at all levels. And I think I want to appreciate folks who worked on this, Catherine, Bruce, and others who worked on developing these goals. It's the best we can do at this point. And I think those partnerships with the organizations, for example, the linkage that we just talked about with IBHS, the linkage with Mercury Insurance and getting people off the CalFare, the unique needs communities, I think it's going to be a real hard nut to crack on what is the linkage. But I think we have to be thinking about that for our next annual report as we start tracking these goals. And so I want to say, yeah, there's so much overlap, but the good news is this really shows what we're trying to do to get the word out to different people of all levels. So I think they're very good. Thank you.
Yes, Dennis.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. And I agree with Barbara. I think she said it well. For me, this goal actually for C and D are uniquely connected to this goal because there's no other place in our other goals that we look at these things. And I think it's really important that as we change and grow and evolve, that we have developed these additional relationships and with the trade organization, vendors, and all those things. Including, I think it's pretty unique to be looking at unique needs communities. And I think learning about those and is really the first part of this goal to understand where they are and who they are before we can even do the outreach. You need to start with who are they. And so I appreciate the community resilience teams being part of this. Center for Independent Living is a great partner, but there's so many other opportunities here. But I think that that's the important part of this goal is we're going to learn about those unique need communities. And that's the first step in learning how to help them with the education part. So
It's a hard one because the unique need communities or socially, vulnerable communities don't always have a high fire risk. So we need to anchor ourselves around that idea of fire risk. Otherwise, we are diluting our efforts. And it's a hard thing to do because we all want to help and protect these communities. But anchoring around fire risk is the first screen, the first filter that needs to happen before we decide whether we can engage or not.
Just to add, just see what happened in the canal. It wasn't a wildfire, but it was a fire. How many people are displaced? So I think those relationships and learning more about them as what Dennis talked about is going to be really critical. And we also know like places like Coffee Park that was hardened and didn't appear how many how much of that's gone,
Mhm.
is places you wouldn't think, or these unique needs communities, there's going to be a way in. And so I think it's just really critical.
I agree. I think that we saw after the Tubbs fire, some of the elected officials were taken up to take a look at neighborhoods that look like regular residential neighborhoods, but they also are homes for people who need assisted living who didn't make it out. And, you know, the high density, those models are integrated into the normal residence areas. So I think that's really important. And so I know that you're going to do this. I also think that it will help to show the dashboard. It will also train me how to use it or what to look for. So I think these are really will help with answer the questions. And I think that's a great idea. So more comments. Okay, Director Goins.
Yeah, just one quick comment. This is great. I support everything everyone's saying, but in coming up to this meeting, I spent time looking at our body of documents, supporting documents. I was looking for our communication plan that we developed in year one, Mark, 1.5. I couldn't find it. But this discussion that we have, we're in our 6th year now. We're articulating metrics that we think make a difference in a relationship that all the words you just spoke. So, Mark, I think a retreat item that I'll bring is that should we open up our communication plan and revisit it and determine whether or not we need to refresh it and update it and bring it up to date?
Well, that might be associated with the communications coordinator position that we've been talking about as one of the early tasks that that position would be tackling.
Good. More questions and comments? Charlotte, do you have any more to add?
That's
Okay,
it. Thank you.
it was excellent. Thank you so much for that thorough presentation. So I'd like to now take public comment on this item. Is there anyone here present or online who would like to make a comment?
Yes, Madam Chair, it does appear that we have a hand raised for public comment. Bill Tyler, you should be able to begin your comment when you are ready.
Chief
Hi,
Tyler,
thank
go
you.
ahead.
Thank you. Just confirming you can all hear me again.
Yes.
We can.
So, you know, I appreciate all of the work that's gone into this with the team, the directors and participants. I think that it's an excellent demonstration of that we can land on these items when we all work closely together, and that recognition that we have in the JPA agreement itself. It includes public education and outreach as one of the 5 pillars of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. And so I think it's important to remain a goal, and we need to elevate if we're gonna begin to track through the metrics the acceleration of wildfire mitigation that happens through public education and outreach. We need to kind of reposition the way we think about public education away from sort of advertising and marketing and more towards risk reduction and infrastructure. And so what I mean is like if you think of fuel reduction treats public lands, the education and outreach is what's treating the private parcels at scale. And so, you know, if you think about education as infrastructure, then you begin to understand that it's a shared responsibility between the agencies, fire safe,
Sir.
sorry, it's a shared responsibility between the agencies, fire safe Marin and residents. There's something like 64,000 parcels with close to 70,000 living units in the WUI and Marin that has an assessed valuation of somewhere just shy of $1 billion when it was assessed back in 2022. And the home evaluations and inspection programs inspects, you know, roughly 30,000 parcels annually. So if that accounts for only, say, half of the WUI parcels, inspections alone in those interactions aren't going to reach every resident every year, which
Steve, I'm so sorry, but due to our time constraints, do you think we could have you come back or do it in some other way? We have to close public comment.
certainly. Certainly, yeah. It's just, I guess in closing, this is that public safety, that outreach and education, I think is mischaracterized when it's thought of as just marketing. And in reality, consistent year-round communications
We will
that's
have
being,
to close the public comment period. I apologize.
thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief. We are interested in what you have to say, so maybe we can get it in a different format, or we can, I'll just ask Mark to talk with you offline. Thank you so much for,
Happy to do that. Happy to do that. Thank you.
thank you, that would be great. Okay, now, are there any other public comments?
There are no additional hands at this time.
Okay, I'll now bring it back to the committee for discussion and to provide any additional feedback. There's no motion needed for this presentation. Anyone else? Okay, I want to thank the committee for a really robust discussion and heartfelt thoughts. And I'm really looking forward to what we do with it next and taking it to the full board. So with that, I would like to go to item 9, which is committee members' requests regarding future agenda items. What did they do?
That's the next thing.
We have the agenda review.
Yeah.
Sorry, I stand corrected here, my cup. Yes, definitely. We're going to the next item, which is the agenda review. Um,
And for that, we'll have a few consent items, a continuation of a contract with Fireside to support the Zone Zero in a Box program. We're likely to have a budget adjustment that gets put into consent as well. But the main topic of discussion will be the strategic goal 4 measures of success. And with Charlotte's inability to attend, we'll encourage board members to watch this video so that they can see the robust discussion and get the background and even if she was going to be here, we'd encourage that anyway to help the board members understand the deep dive that you guys took and to avoid having a deep dive with 17 members. So with that, that's about all we have for the March meeting. But I do think it's important for us to get those measures of success approved by the board prior to us going into the next strategic planning process.
Mark, I want to go back for a second. You talked about a presentation of Zone Zero in a Box. Was that supposed to be a presentation? Because I talked to Ms. Cutter, and I think it's incredibly valuable for us to hear. My question to her, I'm sorry, this is taking privilege here, was what the heck is Zone Zero in a Box? Are we doing it at the local level, or is it just an MWPA thing? Are we coordinating? Do the people at Southern Marin have the same, set of information? What she gave me back was so incredibly helpful. It talked not only about what it is and what we have to do, but what are the resources that we're looking at to actually help people who, number one, haven't got an idea how to get a contract, and number two, haven't got the financial wherewithal to do it, and there are possibilities there. It was just all kinds of things that go way beyond what it says on the paper. So I think the presentation would be wonderful.
We'd be happy to bring both Kathleen and Joe up to be able to give a presentation. We could do it either under staff reports or under information items.
What's your preference?
I think under information items, a real presentation, since we have a relatively light agenda, would be a really good thing to do.
Well,
It's an opportunity for us, right?
Yeah, you bet.
Absolutely. You can say, what if this? And then they come back with, well, here's what we would do. And here's what we're planning to do. And I was really blown away by how helpful it is.
We'll make that happen.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No, I would just like to comment though, when Chief Tyler's speaking on behalf of Fire Safe Marin, I would not consider that a public comment. I mean, he's representing a organization that we are highly working with and engaged with. So it was like giving 2 minutes to Charlotte. We wouldn't do that. Just as we wouldn't give 2 minutes to Chief Tyler. So I would like to apologize for cutting that conversation short.
Good point.
Thank you.
Okay,
So I think with that change to the agenda, you're going to take public comment, but I'm ready to make a motion with that change to the agenda when we're ready. President.
okay. So we are proposing to put Zone 0 in a box in the information item on the next agenda for the board. And it's moved by Director Kohler. Do I have a second? Oh, do we need public comment first?
Do we need to make a motion on this? Is this-
Technically, no.
Right.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Any other suggestions or desires for more information? Okay. So, and we're looking for all of this to be able to assemble our next strategic planning session, which is going to be coming up. So please, members, look at your, what do you call that, where they doodle poll or to, yeah, so that we can set the date for the next session. With that, I'm going to thank everybody and what? Oh, I'm really off today. Sorry about that. Okay. It's a good thing. It's right. So, which one?
So are there any committee members' requests regarding future agenda items? There you go, boss.
Yes, thank you. So,
That would be exec committee as opposed to the board of directors agenda.
I think Bruce wants to speak.
Actually, I have two items. Last executive committee meeting, I asked that we get a briefing on the woody biomass utilization study that is completed here from Marin County. And it was to be agendized at the executive committee level, and it hasn't been. We're ready. The project is out. The executive summary went out yesterday. So, Mark, Ann, please, if you could agendize that to the executive committee first, I think,
Okay.
just to get an idea. And secondly, just in the context of now the new Measure 4 and the work plan, as soon as we can hear where we're headed with the statement of work for public education outreach, the better. I think we're building a new program out. I think we're looking at member responsibilities and then fire safe Marin responsibilities also. I'd like this to, as soon as possible, and perhaps next month when.
Well,
Fire Safe
that is,
Marin-
if I can interrupt, the scope of work is going to the ATC today, operations next week, and then exec in the first meeting of April.
Okay, so we will hear.
It's already on
Okay,
path for
thanks.
that.
Already agendized. Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
okay, thank you so much, bringing it back. Are there any more items of business to take care of? Seeing none, I want to thank everybody for their participation and wonderful results, and thank the staff, and we are now adjourned.
Good job.